Salutations technology junkies wherever you are. My name is Rowan J Parker and today we're going to be doing a review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. I've been living with this phone for about a week now, so I thought it was about time to tell you exactly what I think of it. So we'll be doing a full overview of the hardware and the internal software of the phone. We'll also do a few comparisons and we'll maybe run a benchmark or two as well. And at the end you should have a fairly clear idea exactly what I think of this device. So let's get right down to it. It's time to review the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. Let's rock! Okay, well the thing that most people will notice about this phone the minute you pull it out of the pocket is the size of the screen. It's absolutely humongous. It is 5.5 inches on the diagonal and it's a full Super AMOLED HD screen with a 1280 by 720 aspect ratio, which means it's proper 16 by 9. Now this is actually a little bit less than the original Note, which was a 16 by 10 screen and it had a 1280 by 800 resolution. So the DPI on the new Note is a little bit less. However, the significant change is that they have dropped the pentile matrix, which you found on the original Note, and it's now a full RGB matrix, which means that although, you know, the DPI just a little bit less on the new Note, the quality of the image is far superior. It looks absolutely tremendous. So that's the first thing, screen. Now let's look at the internal hardware specifications of the phone. Okay, let's look at the raw technical specifications of this phone. So, powering this beast, we have a 1.6 GHz quad-core processor backed up by 2 GB of RAM. You've got 16 GB, 32 or 64 GB internal storage options, and you can expand this by a further 64 GB via SD card, giving you potentially 128 gig if you so wish. Now this particular one I have, it's a 16 gig model and I've got a 64 gig card in it, so I've got 80 gig on the phone, which is absolutely plenty for me. Now, powering this beast of a phone, we've got an absolutely humongous 3100 mAh battery, and the battery life in this phone so far for me has been exceptional. Absolutely outstanding. I've got at least 2 days use out of it, and that is with fairly frequent, you know, trips online and all sorts of things. So the battery life has been stellar. Also, other standout features, we've got 8 megapixel camera round the back, LED flash, and front facing 1.9 megapixel camera. Alright, so that's the raw tech specs. Let's take you on a brief tour of the device now. Okay, let's take you on a brief tour of the device. So obviously, front is dominated by the humongous screen, and at the bottom, home button, take you home, and 2 capacitive keys here. We have a back button and a menu button, handy. Up top, 1.9 megapixel front facing cameras, proximity sensors, the earpiece, and you can't see it just now because I don't have a notification, but when I do get a notification, there's a little LED status light which comes on to let you know, which is handy. And turn the device over. So at the back, there's the 8 megapixel camera, LED flash, there's a speaker grill there, and then take this out, it is where the S Pen lives, we'll come back to that later. And then we turn the device onto its side, you see that? So this is the sleep wake button, power on off key, top of the device, little microphone, oh, message there, and headphone jack, and then there's the volume rocker, and then at the bottom of the device we've got another microphone and mini USB for charging the device and also for connecting to your PC to get files on and off. Alright, one last thing we'll do is we'll just take the back off the phone. I'm careful with this. Okay, just so you can have a look at the size of the battery. It's massive. So 3100 mAh battery, and it takes a micro SIM card, and there's your micro SD card, 64 gig micro SD card. Alright, well that's a very brief tour of the phone. If you want to know more about this, I suggest you watch my unboxing video where I do a little bit more detail, but I think you get the general idea. Alright, well, let's move along. Okay, well in this section I'm going to try and give you a sense of the performance of the device. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and power the device on, and we'll see how long it takes to boot up and how long before it's actually usable, before the OS is usable. Now the quad-core processor makes things very fast, and also the particular iteration of Android that this phone is running is 4.1 Jelly Bean, which has on board something called Project Butter, which is something that Google developed to make Android run basically lag free, and you know, it really does do that. So there we go, you see, device is booted up pretty much, and let's go into our settings and show you the device. There we go, a little jelly bean. So let's see if everything is actually fully loaded already. Yep. So very quick to boot. Device is extremely fluid and responsive. You can see that if we go into the app drawer and widgets. There we go, there's the widgets. Oh, something's not loaded up yet, obviously. There we go. Okay, so you see, very fluid and responsive right out of the gate, and I do believe the device is still doing a few things. Yep, but you know, generally usable just after a few seconds, so that should give you a good idea of exactly just how well the device runs. And I have the original Galaxy Note, and I've got to tell you, the performance of the Note 2 is absolutely devastating. It's far better. So yeah, it's a win for me, that one. Alright, well, let's look at some more features of the software of the OS. Okay, well, let's have a quick look at the software the device is running. We know it's running 4.1 Jelly Bean, and overlaid on top of this is Samsung's proprietary TouchWiz interface. Now, normally I dislike these custom skins because all they do is take a good device and make it a slow and sluggish device. But here, it's not too bad at all. It's fairly transparent and does actually add a lot of good functionality. So there's a lot of extra stuff Samsung have put in, but I'll just show you a couple of them, alright? Don't want to bore you to death here. First thing is multitasking. We click on the home button, hold it down, we get the task manager, where we can swap between various applications, and you can dismiss an application just by swiping it off to the side. So that's fairly useful, fairly good. And the next thing is, another multitasking thing they've implemented is, if you long press the back button, you get this little menu. Oh, message. And you can drag an application across, and then you can drag another one across, and you'll see what happens. So you see that? So we've actually got two windows open simultaneously. Oh, there we go. And what we can do is we can resize the division and make one bigger or smaller. Oh, hard to do with one hand. And then we can swap as well. We can swap positions. So usually on a device with a smaller screen, I would think this would be incredibly gimmicky, but on this device I think it's pretty good because the screen is big enough to support it. So that's an interesting little thing. It's alright. And what else have we got? Well, we've got the pop-up video player, of course, which is also on the Samsung Galaxy S3. So we just select a video. Let's turn it landscape. Captain America. And then if we click down here, it'll activate pop-out player. And we can move that around, and we can resize it. And it will stay there no matter what we do. So that's quite cool. Again, slightly gimmicky perhaps, but you know, could be useful. And the last thing that the Samsung have implemented is the S-Voice application, somewhat similar to Apple's Siri. And I've got to say that, just like Siri, I've not had brilliant results with this. Let's see, open YouTube.
Opening YouTube.
Oh, YouTube, interesting. Well, it does do these things. I found that it's not too bad with certain things, but when it comes to, you know, posting to Facebook or Twitter, perhaps it's my accent, but it very rarely gets it right. And it's not usable, and the user experience is just generally frustrating. So I think the voice recognition has not yet come of age. Hopefully shortly it will, but in the meantime it's not really. It's a gimmick and not tremendously useful. Alright, well, I'll tell you what we'll do next is we will look at the S Pen and show you some of the other cool stuff Samsung have implemented with that. Okay, well next up we're going to show you the S Pen, the Spen. And when we take the S Pen out of its holder, you can see that this little splash screen comes up with some of the more direct note-taking options. So we've got note, idea note, meeting note, magazine, diary, recipe. And we just open one of these. Now I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to draw anything because my artistic ability is roughly 0. However, if you are artistic, you might find some of this very useful, and I'm sure it does have its uses, but to be honest, I'm not familiar enough with this suite of applications yet to really judge it, but it is there. And the other things we can do with the pen is it acts just like a finger otherwise. It's a capacitive, fully capacitive pen. So you can, you know, scroll through applications, open applications as you like. Functions just like a finger would. And this is good if you want to stop your screen getting all smudgy from your fingerprints. And a few other things that they've implemented with the pen, for instance in video player. We open the video player. We've got, I'll just play this for you. You see that? It's a little preview on the timeline. So if we want to jump to a scene and get a particular, you know, part of that movie, we can easily see where we're going. Now unfortunately this only works in Samsung's own video application. It doesn't work in other applications yet, though it may do because Samsung have released an SDK to developers so they could possibly implement it otherwise. You can also use the pen in applications like Gallery. So here's the Gallery. So if you hover the pen above the photo, I'm going to see that with my hand getting in the way. You see, you get a little preview. See that works? It's quite neat. So you can actually see what's inside each little folder. Alright, so my feelings about the pen are that it is a lot better than the implementation on the original Galaxy Note. They've implemented a lot of features, and those features generally work quite well. And it's great if you're into drawing and art. Will I find it genuinely useful as time goes on? I think I use it occasionally, but it's not the main thing for me. One of the little things to say about the pen is they have redesigned it compared to the original Note, and now it's a lot longer and thicker, and I don't know if you can see this in the video, but it's a sort of triangular shape, so it doesn't roll off the table quite so easily. And also, if you take the pen away from the device for any length of time, it knows that the pen is missing and will start beeping at you and telling you the pen is not around. So it's intelligent that way as well. You won't forget or lose your pen. Right, so that's a brief overview of the S Pen. Hope you enjoyed that. And we're just going to wrap up with a few other little bits and pieces now. Okay? Okay, now we're going to run an uber geeky benchmarking test. I've got here the original Note, and here we've got the Note 2. And I've got Quadrant Standard installed on both phones, which is a very common benchmarking app for Android. And we're going to run the benchmark, and we're going to see, number one, how long it takes to complete, and number two, exactly what sort of score we get at the end. So let's just see if we can run the benchmark simultaneously. Let's try. And they're off. Well now, interesting. Visually, you see the Note 2 is very much ahead already. I'm actually spanking through this test. My goodness, onto the graphics already. Yeah. Not looking too good for the original Note at this point. Well, there we go. Note 2 has completed the benchmark already. And let's wait for the Note 1 to catch up and finish, and then we'll compare results. Now bear in mind the Note 1 was, last year, one of the fastest phones you could buy. And now, frankly, it looks like it's a dog, doesn't it? Phew, it's finished. Well, let's see. So there's the new Note, your device, and it's obliterating everything, including the HTC One X, and then there's the old Note, considerably below the Asus Transformer Prime and way below the HTC One X, and you know, from Note 1 to Note 2, my goodness, it's a massive difference, isn't it? Yep, so there we go. Comprehensively, this phone has trounced the original Note. So for those of you who are thinking, should I upgrade? Well, if you're into raw specs, the answer is absolutely yes. This is a beast of a phone. Alright, let's crack on. Alright, well, in this next section we're going to look at the camera and the video and audio capabilities of the phone. And this is especially for one of my YouTube viewers called Ryan, and he asked me to do a comparison between the Note 2 video with the original Note video and audio, because he's deciding whether to upgrade to the Note 2, and he's complaining about the video and audio quality on the Note 1. So we'll do a little side-by-side comparison and see, you know, what, if any, is the difference, which will be interesting because I have no idea, but I will know shortly. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, let's look at a few stills taken from the Note 2 camera, and then we'll show you a brief little video test of the Note 2 versus the Note 1, and we'll just see how they stack up, eh? Okay, well, I'm just hand holding this, so it might not be brilliant. I'll pull back with my amazing Steadicam dolly move. And there we go. It's an unfeasibly large plasma television, which is awesome. Okay, well, I think that gives you a sense of the picture quality and hopefully the audio quality as well. So let's try the Note 1 with much the same sort of shot. Okay, and here is fundamentally the same shot on the Galaxy Note 1. Patented Steadicam dolly pushback. And once again you can see the awesomeness of this plasma telly. I will need to compare these images side by side on the big screen to really see what I think, but superficially Note 2 possibly looks a bit sharper, though it's quite hard to tell. So, don't know. And this is just natural daylight, by the way. There's no artificial lighting here, it's just the natural daylight coming in through the window behind me, which you can probably see. So, I think when we stack them up side by side, we'll have a better idea of exactly the relative merits of both. So let's see. Okay, so that's my brief look at the camera and the video capabilities. Not bad all round. And just remind you of the specs, it's 8 megapixel camera on the back, and the video is full HD video, which is 1080p. And there's a whole host of software editing you can do. It has things like panorama, face detection, which is standard now, has a burst shot mode, and it has even a thing called best face, where if you take a group photograph and one of you has their eyes closed or are looking kind of stupid, you can replace their face to create a much better composite image. And you've got full control over the images otherwise, white balance, all that sort of stuff, it's all in there. So it's a very good camera suite overall. Can it replace your point and shoot? Well, maybe. Certainly no match for a DSLR, but to replace a point and shoot, well, yeah, I think it probably could. Alright, we're just going to move on to the final wrap up now. Okay, well that concludes my review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. And so what do I think of it? Well, I would say that after living with the device for a week, I feel I really haven't scratched the surface of all the things that this amazing phone will do. However, I have used it very extensively, and I've got to say it's by far and away the best phone that I've ever owned. And the standout features really are definitely size of the screen for me. I cannot use anything smaller now. And just the speed of the device, which is incredible. And as you might have guessed, I'm not really an Apple fan anymore, even though I own several iPhones. Android all the way for me now, because it is just far superior in every way in terms of flexibility. I can do what I want with the device, I can get stuff on and off it very easily. Just for me is the way forward. I prefer an open ecosystem as opposed to Apple's walled garden. So there you have it. So do I recommend this phone? Well, I think it really depends what you want. If you want a humongous smartphone, then absolutely yes. And if you've got a Galaxy Note 1 and you're thinking of upgrading to a Galaxy Note 2, I would say yeah, it's a no-brainer. If however you're used to Apple products, I would say probably not. Probably want to go with an iPhone 5, which is, let's be fair, an awesome phone. but for me, it's the ideal device. So that's been it. I've been Rowan J Parker. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed it, found something useful in the video, and yeah, phone for me, definitely. Galaxy Note 2 is tremendous.